Hey, and welcome back to Happy, Healthy, and Skeptical. We are your hosts, Christy Palamo and Jennifer Hobson, and today we are talking about resistance. So today we're talking about resistance, and there's two ways to look at it. So I'm just going to jump right into the question of these two ways of looking at it. So Jen, do you think resistance in something that you're wanting to do, something in your life, do you think that resistance is telling you to keep going? Like the bigger the resistance, the bigger the reason you're supposed to do it? Or do you see it as resistance as in like, oh, this is too much work, this is too hard, I need to stop, like this isn't the right path for me? So how would you say in your experience it shows up the most?
For both myself personally and for coaching, what I have found more times than not is that resistance is that little voice that's telling you you're on the right path, right? And I think it's different. Resistance is different than fear. And I want to say it's different, but it's also a little bit of the same. But when you're talking about resistance, I think it goes back to the idea of, well, what are my priorities? We always have to go back to that. What did I say was the most important to me? What was the goal that I aligned with that priority? And what was the vision? If we haven't identified those, then it doesn't matter how much resistance we feel because we don't actually know if that path is important to us. And I don't think that the feeling of resistance is what should tell you whether or not to keep going. The vision needs to be there and you need to be going because you're in alignment with that. And the thing that I kind of thought of when you had brought up resistance is we need to let go of our attachment to the immediate outcome, right? And be connected to that long game. A lot of us create these visions and these goals, and we get that one tiny feeling of resistance, and we throw our hands up and go, oh, nope, it's not for me. Someone told me no. Or, oop, nope, not for me, didn't go as planned, right? There's all these obstacles that are getting in our way. And like we've talked in past podcasts, they can show up in different ways as, procrastination or distraction or self-sabotage, whatever the things are. But I truly think resistance is there for a reason. It's there to push you beyond the boundaries that you've already hit, right? We're growing and we're learning. Because I think most people, if you're listening to this conversation, you're not here to be average, right? You're here for some reason. Maybe you just are listening to us, but most people that have decided to press play are on a trajectory of growth or personal development, just getting better at something. So if you're feeling resistance, I think you're on the right path, even with a little bit of fear. If you step back and go, you know what, this is not in alignment with what I said I wanted or what my top 3 priorities, that's completely different. That type of resistance is different because that's telling you this isn't going to get us to where I said I wanted to be. But if you're feeling resistance because the thing you decided to do isn't easy, well, guess what? The things that you want most in life are easy. I say it all, and even my mentor, my coach says it all the time. My personal business, it's not easy, but it's simple. Just like your fitness journey, it's probably not easy, but the thought of what I know I have to do is simple. Nutrition, same thing. It's not easy to decide at least 80% of the time to choose the healthy option. So if you're feeling resistance, it's because you're on the right path. If you take a step back and that resistance is because it's not in alignment, then that makes sense. But don't just stop because it's not easy. That was a very long-winded answer.
No, but I think it's great because I totally agree with you on that. And I think it can get muddy when this topic comes up because as you mentioned, how sometimes people feel a thing and it is different than that gut feeling of just like, this isn't the right path for me. And I think we all know when that feeling comes up, that's not resistance of like the procrastination and not doing everything else. I'm going to organize my sock drawer instead of doing the things I need to do. I'm going to, finding anything else to do instead of the thing. But I think there's that difference between that gut feeling of like, this isn't the right path. I need to find the correct thing. I know I'm meant to do. And then, yeah, I think resistance, and from what I've read about too, and my own experience, like the bigger my calling for something, the bigger that I know, or the more I'm meant to do something, usually the bigger the resistance is. And it's like it gets real loud, it gets real harsh. And as I wanted to talk about this topic was because I had picked up a book that is one of my ultimate favorites that I had forgotten about for a long time. And it's called The War of Art by Stephen Pressfield. And we'll put the info in it's not to be confused with The Art of War, very different. But this is The War of Art. And I just started reading it again. And it's, oh my gosh, my copy of this book is just so worn because I have come back to it through the years. And I probably had it about 20 years, honestly. And it's a quick little 1-page reads of like how resistance shows up for us. And so he goes into saying how resistance does show up as fear. It shows up as procrastination. He even labels one of them resistance in sex, like keeping yourself busy with like so many other things until you just sit down and do the darn thing that is like making you basically sick if you're like not doing it and not pursuing the thing you're meant to do. And then another point he makes that I've seen ring true too is that like say you're getting really close to whatever goal it is, that's when resistance usually gets the loudest too. Like you have this voice in your head telling you you're not worthy, you're not supposed to be doing this. Who are you to be like I felt it when starting a podcast. Who are you to be starting a podcast? You know, who are you to be wanting to write books? Who are you to want to do this business that is not in, not the mainstream 9 to 5? Like it shows up for sure. And especially as you're making certain decisions, I find that it gets louder. And he reiterates that. And it kind of reminds you like, okay, I'm not alone in this. And so I definitely recommend that book. As one it's kind of like a kick in the head, not kick in the head. I guess that's not what I would say. Kick in the
It's
kick in the
a
butt
gut
of
punch. A gut punch.
yes,
That's what I think
get
of.
going.
I mean, it could be a kick in the head. That's fine. That'll get you to do something new. I love that
Just
you
get
said
moving.
not worthy, though. As you said, not worthy. I have to show her. I wrote not worthy on my notebook because I think a lot of times with resistance, it's for me, it shows up when I'm spending way more time thinking about the thing I know will move the needle forward on whatever I'm trying to achieve rather than doing the action that I said was going to move the needle. So we've talked about it before, but brain energy is the most draining, right? It can be the most rewarding if we're taking action. But if we're just thinking about doing the thing, that's the resistance that I feel. And it's because it goes back to the overthinking and that whole black hole that for a lot of us leads back to that feeling of not worthy. I'm so close to my goal. What happens if I actually achieve it? And then you go down this whole line of, well, if I achieve that goal, how do I keep that goal? How do I maintain that goal? And you're going down this rabbit hole. Just achieve it and relish in it and celebrate it and feel that, then get to the next part. There's always going to be a next part, yes, but achieve it first and then take it from there. Stop self-sabotaging yourself with that itty bitty voice of self-resistance because you're afraid you don't know what to do after you achieve the goal. You're not there yet. That's not the priority. The priority is achieving the goal. Shut that stupid voice up and go for it.
And because there's no way, you're not like a prophet, you can't know what it's going to be like. So we have these fears in our heads of like what we think is going to happen. The fear of success really is a big one for a lot of people, and I've definitely seen it as I progressed in my business and raised promotions to a level that, again, I didn't think I was worthy of. But really it was truly the fear of success, of what would happen once I was there. And it was just me imagining all these scenarios. But of course, I can't predict the future. I don't know what it would be like, but it's like just arrive there, as you're saying, arrive there and experience it and let yourself enjoy it. And actually, it reminds me of when I was performing. I always go back to that, like a whole different life, as I was performing. And when I started doing trapeze, I was 28, so I was older. I had never really been upside down in my life. Like I was never a gymnast, so maybe a cartwheel, that was about it. So to start to learn to do something so different and so major, and the first time I went up on the trapeze at full height, I realized I had a major fear of heights that I didn't actually know about. Like totally frozen in space, could not move, and paralyzed. And I had a choice because it was either like, well, you get over it, or you go home. You go home, and that's your contract's done, and that's it. Like it wins. So it was that fear taking over, and I at the time chose to keep moving, and just one step at a time. Okay, move your hand here, move your foot there. You know you're strong enough, you know you can do it. And it was literally the act of moving and taking one step at a time that moved me forward. And eventually over time I realized, I mean, the fear was never totally gone, but it was something I could work through, which a lot of people think of, say, a fear of heights is like, that's it, it's part of an identity, right? And we've talked about that before too. But then to see on the other side and experience that success of being a actual trapeze artist and successful with it and performing, it was like being able to enjoy that moment, as you had been talking about. And it was so different than what I had imagined with all this fear in my head beforehand.
I love that story, Christy. I mean, I'm like picturing it and being there. My outcome feels like I would just throw up and then go home. But but I think when I'm listening to you and what you're saying, I think we've talked about this, that we're really in like the anti-hustle culture conversation is going around a lot, that like we just need to be able to rest. We're doing enough. We're doing enough. And again, I go back to, if you're listening to this, there's something you're trying to achieve, and you're not here to listen to us to be average, right? If you're even listening to podcasts that are about personal development, it's because you're working on you. And where I'm taking this part of it is, in that moment, it was you hustling, right? Because you had no other chance, and your back was physically against the wall saying, it's either go big or you're literally, the only option is you're going home. And a lot of times when resistance doesn't creep in is because we have no other choice and we're going for it no matter what, right? When you have no other options, resistance doesn't even get an iota of your time, attention, and energy. For me, when I had my biggest breakthrough in my business, it's because there was no back door. There was no other option. My husband had been unemployed for almost a year, right? My son was being sent home from preschool almost every single day. I was emotionally drained. I was driving 10 hours to work. I didn't like my job because I knew there was no room for growth. This was the only option. And that's when I had the biggest breakthrough. And I say that because what I see so many people doing when I'm coaching is they lower their expectations for their goals because they're afraid that they're not capable of actually achieving them. And I'm here to say, stop lowering your expectations because you have a fear of failure. Close the back door. Your back is against the wall, and I will tell you, resistance will not have a place in your day because there's no time for it. I don't know how.
100%. No, and I think that's great because you're talking about resistance leading into breakthrough, really. And that's powerful because it's true. Like we see it show up and like keep us from the thing until, as you said, there is no other way. And then it leads to that breakthrough of just like, that's what's going to make me do the thing now, is.
And I think rather than, constantly avoiding that resistance feeling, embrace it. Do that uncomfortable shit. Guess what? Success is on the other side of uncomfortable.
Mm-hmm.
Every
I was
single
literally just about to say that same exact thing. It's on the other side of discomfort.
Right? I don't think if you talk to anyone that has been successful or has hit huge goals or even has achieved, consistent feelings of happiness in their lives, said, that was the easiest thing I've ever done. Never, never. And if it was, the one hit wonders of life, it didn't keep happening. They didn't keep achieving success. They didn't keep building businesses. They didn't keep staying healthy. They did it for a momentary lapse in their life, and then it was gone because they didn't have to work for it. They didn't have to earn it. They didn't have to get those uncomfortable scars, right? That make their skin a little bit thicker to keep going and keep doing the things that scare them, but that they know are on the right path. And I think that's the most important thing. Is there time where we need to rest? Absolutely. However, you have big goals, you have big dreams, and they don't have to be big to everyone. They can be your version of big. But I really want to say, stop lowering your expectations. Embrace the suck, right? We've heard that before. Embrace the suck and go for it. You don't have to always be in hustle mode. We talked about this last conversation. It's that balance. Balance is a figment of your imagination. And what season are you in? Are you in your hustle season or are you in your rest season? But what I can tell you is you can't always be in your rest season if you want to accomplish something.
Oh, I'm so glad you brought that up because I see this all the time on social media, and I totally agree with you. There is a season for rest. There is. And especially, you know what? Most of us needed that going into COVID and quarantine. It was a time when everybody kind of like slammed on the, well, we had to slam on the brakes because we didn't have any choice. And people started to realize, like, wow, I want to value rest. I want to value more quality time with people in my life. And so it made us take that moment and slow down, which was so, so, so needed. But now we are like 3 years later and it's okay. You don't have to, you can start again tomorrow, which there is always a time for that. I think we all know that there's a time where if it didn't happen today, let it go. And okay, we'll try again tomorrow. But if you're every single day just, well, I need to rest, and that it's just seeming too hard, like we're here to tell you, like, now it's just time, just step up, pull up your pants, and let's go. Like,
Right. Pick up your big girl, your big boy pants and move on. And I think the thing is, words are important. And in that time period, there were two kinds of people. There were people that really struggled and it was a challenge and they needed that rest. And there were some people that marched forward, even though it wasn't at the rate that they had thought they would. But the conversation has changed and people are confusing rest with complacency.
ooh, yes, 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 that's
Yeah,
key right there.
people are getting comfortable because it's crazy that it's been 3 years of challenges and confusion and really hard times to go, you know what, I still need to rest. Well, now I think you're in a state of complacency. You're comfortable and you're afraid of growth because you haven't had any in the last 3 years because you've been allowed to let yourself off the hook and disguise it as resting.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And I think you have to really, I always take it back. And it doesn't have to be for the year. Maybe it's for the month. Maybe it's for a week. But what are the three most important things? I will continue to say mine this year. They are finances, fitness, and family. So, what are the things that I'm doing every day? And it doesn't have to be the same amount of extraordinary effort. And I think even that word, if you've read Miracle Equation by Hal Elrod, extraordinary effort isn't actually, climbing Mount Everest. It's not this crazy extraordinary effort.
Or
It's
hours and hours of your
yes,
day.
yes, but what are the things that are doing? So if it's fitness for me, am I working out for 15 minutes? Not even every day, but I got 15-minute workouts in a week. That's moving the needle forward versus doing nothing because I said I needed to rest for 14 days. Whatever it is, and I just think you have to stop and go, what are the three most important things to me at this point? What are the things that I can do to move the needle? And when you start to feel that resistance because it's uncomfortable, pushing through and see how you feel on the other side of resistance. Let go of that thought of I am entitled to rest all the time because I need it. That's fine, but I'm here to tell you you can rest as long as you want, but there will be no growth in it.
Exactly. And you're never going to reach the things that you say that you want to. So if you're needing the rest, then schedule the time and know how long you're going to give yourself. And then you know what? When you are in that rest phase, actually let yourself rest, and literally put your phone, turn it off, put it in another room, put it in a drawer, if that's the thing that distracts you or whatever your rest looks like, but allow yourself. And sometimes, honestly, when I'm in the rest moment, like I'll start to feel guilty or anxious that I'm supposed to be doing something, but I'm like, no, I planned this to be my rest time or just the quality time with my family. And I literally have to remind myself and talk to myself saying, this is the most important thing you need to be doing right now. This is it. That's it. And sometimes you have to remind yourself that, and that's okay. But if you have that schedule in there, then it lets you have and enjoy the rest, so that then you know when to pick your ass back up and get going again.
Absolutely. And as we kind of wrap this up, Chrissy, what I also want to touch on is when we're saying, that extraordinary effort every day to be in growth mode, a lot of us do end up, we're 3 days in, we've worked out for 15 minutes every single day and we don't have six pack, right? That can be super devastating, or you feel more bloated, but you don't actually understand the out. What I'm here to encourage you is we have to let go of our attachment to the immediate outcome, right? Be connected to your long game, right? Be connected to the long game. We know it's the small amounts of time every single day that are going to get us there versus that, sprint puke. I remember my band teacher, and she would talk about, I think it was her Nana, and her Nana would drive her, right? And driving with her, she wanted to throw up because she would push on the gas and release the gas and push on the gas and release the gas. And it was like flailing forwards towards the dashboard every 5 seconds and then getting whiplash. And I think that's what happens sometimes is we are so connected to our goal, but we're disappointed that we're not getting the results every single day. Guess what? It's the compound effect, guys. It is never going to be one for one. I did the 15-minute workout. I have one ab. That's not how this works. Even in your business, I did the conversations. Guess what? I have 10 new clients. That's not how any of this works. So let go of the attachment to the immediate outcome and be connected to the three most important things, that clear vision you created, and the long game. It's a long game for me, and it might not go exactly as planned, which we've experienced that this morning, but I know I'm going to get there regardless. The journey along might just look a little different.
And you just have to remind yourself of that. We all do. We all have to remind ourselves of that. It's the long journey. So thank you guys so much for joining in with us. Another great topic that I could keep going on and on about. And we'll put in the show notes the book that we were talking about, and join our conversation. Follow us on Instagram at Happy Healthy Skeptical. And we will see you next time, guys.